Okay, hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about women and Latino liberation. So, we're going to focus on who wrote The Feminine Mystique, a book, and what was its message, who was the editor of Ms. Magazine, and identify Title IX and the Supreme Court case, Roe versus Wade. Okay? So, women. So feminism is going to hit during this counterculture movement, and it is a belief that men and women should be equal politically, in politics, in ability to run for office and hold office, economically, in that women should receive equal pay for equal work as men, and socially. So it says 40 years from the 19th Amendment, more women had a lower percentage. We have a lower percentage of women who are enrolled in colleges, and working women are often regulated to stereotype jobs like teaching or nursing. So we have less women enrolled in college, and we have a lot of women being put into certain types of jobs, being kind of steered toward those jobs, um, and not to others. It says only a small number of women in the U.S. by 1960 were lawyers. Even fewer are doctors. So TV continues to portray men as the breadwinner in the family, the woman as the homemaker. Remember, from the 50s, this was very typical. So the counterculture movement is shunning what they grew up in the 50s. And so therefore they're going to fight against this idea that only the man could have a career. It says women who worked alongside men were paid less than their female counterparts at that time who did the same job. So in 63, an Equal Pay Act was passed, which outlawed paying men more than women for the exact same job. Okay. Now, speaking of less women as lawyers, I have a video to show you very quickly of a famous lawyer you may know. I want you to hear what she has to say on equal pay.
Together we can break down barriers for women and finally guarantee equal pay for equal work. And we can break down barriers.
So, she's promising if she had been elected that she would break down those barriers and finally provide equal pay to women for equal work. My point of the video is to show you that while this may be passed, there are still many lawsuits that are going to come up between 63 and today where women are arguing they're not getting paid as they should, and that men in the same position are getting paid more. So Hillary Clinton brings that with her into her campaign, with the idea of this attack on women and that women are being attacked. With that being said, I thought it was interesting. I'm doing this flip video in front of what you see behind me. Maybe I can get out of the way, the Trump poster back there. Because certainly the Clinton people went after him about some of his fairly nasty comments he made about women and said that he was leading the cause of an attack on women. So that's why she picked up, I think, this Equal Pay Act even more so to distance herself from him and to pick up those female votes. Okay, Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan was a graduate of Smith College in 1942, wrote the book called The Feminine Mystique. She called the American home a comfortable concentration camp for women, and attacked the idea that women should be content doing housekeeping chores and child rearing. She's also going to claim that women have no self-esteem, no sense of identity, because in the 50s, coming into the 60s, they don't have their own career. So her book becomes a bestseller as women all over the United States are going to talk to each other, pour out their anger and frustration about the fact that they are basically cooped up in their home and not allowed to work. So that's The Feminine Mystique. Here is Betty Friedan. So here she is. Here is her book, The Feminine Mystique. And she goes on to be a major speaker in the movement of women's lib. We call it liberation. Okay? All right. So with that being said, I want to show you a couple of things before I get to this last part. Speaking of women being in a comfortable concentration camp. Two things I want to show you. First, if I can get it on there. This is my diploma for my bachelor's degree at Meredith College, which was an all-female school. And definitely at that school, you felt this underlying movement about educating women, the importance of educating women, and the importance of women's rights. Here's another picture of me, back when I was so much younger, graduating and getting my diploma. Point of me showing you these is that I did go to an all-women's institution, and I felt like it benefited me in many ways to be in an all-women's college. One thing about it, though, is with this movement back over here about being in the home, women's comfortable concentration camp deal, feminine mystique, is when I left teaching after my second son was born, to actually see my children and spend time with them and see their first steps and things like that. I had missed a lot by working. And so it was a wonderful, wonderful, very special time for me to be able to be home. And I could not have done that without the support of my husband. Having said that, I will say that I was out 4.5 years, and I knew I mean, the only thing I've ever been good at is teaching, and I knew that I was a good teacher, and I missed so much being with high school students by the end of that 4.5 years. And I was torn. I was just I had guilt all the way around. Mother's guilt, guilt about myself, like thinking I really want to work again in a high school and teach and be with students. And then guilt that if I do that, I'm going to leave my children, and how are they going to get picked up from school, and so on and so forth. And so I had a really hard time making that decision to come back to work. I can tell you that housekeeping and child rearing are a full-time job. And so now I have 2 full-time jobs. I'm a mom and a teacher, and I work nearly around the clock to do those 2 things. Some people find that this staying home that is not for them. And I'm really thankful that I could, for the time period that I could, and be with my small children. So I do not think it's a comfortable concentration camp. To me, that's absurd to even somewhat compare it to Nazi Germany. However, I do think if you had a spouse who would not allow you to work and you really had that strong desire, it would be hard. So I was fortunate that I could do what I wanted. Okay? So anyway, let's go on to Civil Rights Act. It was passed in 1964, you know that already, which made it illegal to discriminate in employment on the basis of gender. We looked at it on the basis of race before, so this is focusing on gender. In 1966, Betty Friedan, Feminine Mystique, will organize a very famous group called NOW, National Organization for Women. They still exist. Large numbers of women have joined NOW over the years. Its goal was to pass an Equal Rights Amendment. It says during this time, membership hit over 200,000 people. They never get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. 72, the movement has its own magazine called Ms., meaning not MRS period, which is what I would be. Ms. would be a distinction of it doesn't matter if you're married or not. So when I write my name, I would write MRS period. But in this time period, women are going to write Ms., meaning whether or not I'm married, it doesn't matter. My husband does not signify my worth. That magazine will be edited by Gloria Steinem. Again, I said the Equal Rights Amendment is never passed. Gloria Steinem. Let me show you a picture of her. So Gloria Steinem, Ms. Magazine, here she is. A great speaker. She's going to go on tour, talk about her magazine, Ms., and talk about women's rights and women's liberation. I thought I'd tell you this quick story really quick. When my husband has a business partner and they were changing some things within the business, and part of what they did was set up if something were to happen to his partner, how would he buy out the rest of the company, etc. And they had to have the spouses come and sign the paperwork with their husbands. So, because I'm liable to. So, when I went to sign the paperwork, the attorney standing there said, "Now I need you to sign Mrs. Brandon King," because that's my husband's name, "not Amy." And I said, "Excuse me, what?" And he said, "I need you to sign Mrs. Brandon King because technically that's your legal name." I said, "No, technically it is not." So it's interesting how this idea of having your husband's name, which I don't mind at all, but the fact that he told me I could only write it that way kind of irritated me. So that goes back to the Ms. thing. Title IX is going to prohibit federally funded schools from discriminating against women, specifically in athletics. So it's going to say if you fund male athletic programs with this amount of cash, you need to take the same amount of cash and fund female athletic programs in colleges. Colleges. So that's how you get female swimming teams and etc. on the college level. Oh, I'm about to get Roe v. Wade. Okay, so Roe v. Wade is going to say that states cannot prohibit abortion. So another up to 3 months, I should add. So if you're pregnant, up to 3 months pregnant, then the state cannot refuse you an abortion as long as you're over 18. If you're under 18, you can still receive that abortion with your parents' permission. They have to be present. So Roe v. Wade will set off a firestorm, which is still being discussed. Will Trump put in Supreme Court justices to specifically overturn this, making abortion illegal? So it is legal up to 3 months. All right, Cesar Chavez, a Mexican-American worker who's going to organize poorly paid grape pickers and lettuce workers in California. He will form the United Farm Workers, UFW, United Farm Workers. Very famous man. Picture of him very quickly. Cesar Chavez, here he is speaking. And so he's going to be sort of like a union leader, and he's going to push this United Farm Workers Union. He will mobilize Mexican Americans to hold strikes against the grape growers. And he does this in San Joaquin Valley in 1965. He also convinces this whole counterculture movement all across the country to boycott grapes. And in fact, it hurts the grape industry so strongly. It says many farm workers will lose their homes because of the strike, because if you're on strike, you're not getting paid your full paycheck. But he succeeds in pushing the grape industry and others to increase the hourly wage of farm workers in California from $1.20 in 65 to $3.53 by 1977. So it does go up. So he's very influential in the grape growing industry, lettuce growing industry, to get them to increase their wages. Latino college students form La Raza Unida, which is the United People. It is a political party to promote Latino causes and get Latino candidates to office. And we've seen more and more Latino men and women be elected to offices from all the way from Congress down. Okay, they're going to promote bilingualism. Bi means two, so 2 languages, teaching immigrant students in their own language while they also learn English. Okay, Siler City Elementary, for example, has a bilingual program. The kids learn in both languages. Okay, so who wrote Feminine Mystique? Betty Friedan. His message is that women are living in a comfortable concentration camp and should be allowed to work. Who's the editor of Ms. Magazine? That would be Gloria Steinem. Title IX, Women Athletics in Colleges, allow funding for that. Roe v. Wade states cannot prohibit abortion. All right, make sure you write your summary.